In today's video, we're going to be aquascaping and setting up the new 90-gallon aquarium. In a recent video, I picked up this 90-gallon aquarium, I painted the background black, I painted the stand and the canopy black as well, and I also did a leak test and filled up the tank to make sure there's no issues with this used aquarium. It is time to aquascape and set up the rest of this tank finally. I'm very excited for this one, so let's dive right in. So here's my 90-gallon aquarium, which has been full for a little over a week now. I figured since the tank was already full of water from my leak test that I would go ahead and throw the driftwood that I got in here to make sure that it's waterlogged and that we can actually aquascape it and keep the driftwood submerged. And I'm going to show some clips of how I picked out this driftwood and where I got it from. But before I do that, I do have to reveal the stocking for this tank so that everything else makes sense. So in the previous video, I mentioned that I was definitely open to your suggestions. If you have a really good idea, it's definitely something that I'll consider. I am definitely not 100% sure what I'm going to do with this tank. And there are many great suggestions and comments on the last video. And there are really 4 different options that came to the top. One of those was a Tanganyika community tank. I definitely want to do that in the future, but not for this 90-gallon tank. 2 other options was keeping more of a pet fish, like a flower horn, or doing something like a red devil or Midas cichlid on its own in this tank. And I was really close to going with one of those options, but the one that was suggested the most and really caught my eye was a discus tank setup. I am very excited for this, and judging by some of your comments, many of you are as well. But I really do think a 90-gallon aquarium is great for discus because discus do get a little taller than other cichlids, and the extra height of the aquarium kind of fits that perfectly. But now that we know the fish and the stocking that will be in this tank, we can really design the hardscape and the aquascape around that type of fish. And because I really wanted a nice aquascape for these discus, I decided to head to one of my local fish stores that has the best selection of driftwood, rocks, and hardscape. So I drove about 40 minutes away to one of my favorite local fish stores, SR Aquaristic. I actually picked up driftwood and rocks from them when I was setting up my 150-gallon aquarium. So I definitely wanted to go back and see what else I could do with some of their awesome hardscaping materials. So I spent a ton of time in their driftwood and rock section back here. There is a great selection, and I kept setting it up in their little sandbox so you can design your aquascape right there in the store. And basically what I was going for was 2 sections of rock and driftwood so that the discus could not only swim around the whole aquascape but also through the middle as well. I spent a long time here, probably about 45 minutes to an hour, just messing with the different driftwood and structures. I was very close here for a second, but the big piece of driftwood kind of going over the middle just wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And I mixed it up a little bit with some different spiderwood pieces that were sticking more upright and vertical, which I think will go a lot better with the different rocks and plants that I add. So once I finally got this the way I wanted it, I took a few pictures and a mental note just to make sure I could transfer this aquascape into the tank once I got home. Threw the driftwood into the tank, and it's starting to become waterlogged. Some of the pieces have already fallen to the bottom, which is great. It looks like there's only one piece still floating, but hopefully that will sink here very soon. And I think in the meantime, we can pick up some of the other materials such as the equipment, the substrate, and some live plants. So I'm going to go to a different local fish store that's a little closer to me to pick up those today. So let's get to it.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
So we have the tank draining, and these are our aquascaping materials. We got Chester here, but we also have plant weights and glue if needed. We have the waterlogged driftwood here. We have a box of rocks. We have 3 20-pound bags of sand and a lot of live plants that we just bought. So I'm going to get everything organized and prepared to go into the tank as soon as this is done draining. Tank is almost all the way drained. One thing I love about the Ciche Ultra Zero is that it drains pretty much all the way to the bottom of the tank. And as that was draining, I roughly set up what the aquascape is hopefully going to look like once we get it in the tank. And I'm going to start putting in the sand first, and then the aquascape will go in second. The 3 bags of sand are in and I am loving this substrate. I was really surprised with how much I ended up liking this. It looks a little bit like the sand in my 180, but some of the pebbles are a little bigger, and there's a nice mix of darker pebbles that goes along nicely with that white and brown look. With that now complete, it's time to add in the hardscape.
Here we go.
So we have the sand, driftwood, and rocks in the aquarium. I think it's looking great. Now it's time to add our live plants. So I'm very excited to have this tank set up. I think it really turned out great. I'm admittedly not the best aquascaper, but I do think this ended up turning out pretty well. I did have a vision for it going in, and luckily my local fish stores had a pretty good selection of materials to use. And obviously this will grow and evolve over time, but I really love the rock and driftwood along with all the different Java fern in here. I was also going to add some Anubias, but the local fish store I went to did not have that in stock. So I'll likely add even more plants to this over time, as well as just the current plants growing in even more. I really love the Carib Sea sand here. I think it really puts it over the top, as well as the black background. And in terms of equipment, you saw me adding the Seachem Tidal 110, which is my favorite hang on the back filter. I'm also going to add a small canister to this, one that's already running on another tank, so when the new fish do arrive, I'll have a seeded canister and plenty of biological media to add to this tank at the same time. And then for the light, I used a JCMP aquarium light, which I really like. It's thin and sleek and has some different settings you can add to the light. I'm likely going to do a full unboxing and review of that light coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. But that filtration and lighting will definitely suffice for the Java fern and Anubias, which are pretty low-tech plants and don't need a ton of sophisticated lighting or CO2 system. So hopefully all that will be needed is maybe some fertilizers over time. And because this will be a discus aquarium, it does need to be very warm. So I have a Hygger heater that I added to this tank, and it's currently at about 83 to 84 degrees. But yeah, this tank is pretty much ready to go. I just need to add that seeded canister filter as well as maybe some biomedia from my other tanks to the Seachem Tidal hang on the back as well, just to make sure the discus are ready to go as soon as they come in. And I'm going to be getting those discus very soon, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that update. I can't wait to show the progress of this tank over time, as well as the rest of my tanks and my brother's tanks. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.